So outside of those lender and title fees, we talked about warranty commissions. What are some other things that could fall into that category?
So there's always some government expenses. And again, because some of it has become more negotiable, they're not as high on the buy side as they are on the sell side, but in everything is negotiable kind of world, that too can become an issue. And then lastly, what we call prepaid items or escrows. So most people will include their taxes and insurance in their monthly payment. You have to include it when you put less than 20% down or get a government loan, and then it's only optional for those getting conventional over 20% down payment. So when you do that, you got to build that escrow account at the closing table, and it's your money to prepay or put towards those future tax and insurance bills that you're going to get. But it's not insignificant, depending on how much the taxes and insurance are on the house. If you get a house that has $5,000 a year in property taxes, it could be another $2,500 going into the escrow account. 2,500 to 3,000 even to cover future tax and insurance bills. So nothing to sneeze at, but you can, some people choose not to include it, and then obviously they save that money at closing, but they get the bill every 6 and 12 months.
All right, so the list just keeps on piling up here. So we've got escrows we've spoken about, we've got title fees. Somebody has to pay for the appraisal, right? The lender wants to make sure that we're not buying a home that is significantly more value than what the true market value is. So there's an appraisal that's done by the lender. It benefits the buyer. Who's paying for that appraisal?
So most of the time it's the buyer that pays for the appraisal. And generally speaking, it's the only fee that you may be asked to pay for up front or prior to your loan closing and full application, because the appraiser is going to get his money whether or not you close on the loan. That's just what they do, right? They go out to the house, they send a bill out, and from there, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, and real quick, so let's talk about that appraisal process today. That's much different than it was in 2000, correct?
Yeah, thanks to 2008, Fannie instituted this home valuation code of conduct, which Ginny and Freddie have both adopted as well, which basically says that people on my side of the fence in the lending world, which is to say loan originators, loan and assistants, anybody that's on the origination side of the channel cannot have direct contact with an appraisal so as to not give the impression that we are pressuring them to give a number to match the contract or something like that. Every appraiser gets a copy of the purchase contract because Fannie requires it.
Right.
But if they don't think the house is worth it, they don't want to hear from me to say, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm never going to send you another loan again if you don't. So that was the whole purpose of it. And so as a result, it has added just another level of kind of anonymity to the process, because I don't know who the appraiser is until the report comes back in and we get to see it and see what the house is worth.
Yeah, and generally the listing agent is the first person to find out who the appraiser is going to be, because the appraiser is going to set up an appointment with them to get inside the house.
Right.
And while we're on that subject of the appraisal, so it is a benefit to the buyer if it's a situation where the house doesn't appraise for the purchase agreement price. These days, it's not unusual that somebody is willing to say, listen, tell the sellers, and this is through the negotiation process, I am willing to pay the appraisal gap. And when that phrase appraisal gap comes into play, it's talking about the gap between whatever the purchase agreement price is and wherever the appraisal may have come in, whether that's $1,000 or $10,000. So through negotiations, some buyers may want to choose to do that because they know it could be a situation where that can make the difference of whether a seller is going to accept their offer so that they can buy that home. And unfortunately or fortunately, because of the circumstances we're in, with only about 1,100 homes all the way down to Findlay, Ohio from the Michigan line, there's not allowed to choose a lot to choose from. And at the same time, not every home is built with the same quality. Not every home has been well updated. Some homes may not be decorated in a neutral decor, which, for a busy family, that may be very important for them because everybody's working, everybody's busy with school and soccer or baseball. So those kinds of things can be added into the purchase agreement. So when you see people paying $30,000, $40,000 over list price, there may have been an appraisal gap fee involved, just as a little asterisk to our conversation so that you know how that works. Some people may look at that and think, oh, how did that house appraise for that value? It may not have. So somebody may have paid an appraisal gap fee to help make that happen.